Hello everyone, how's it going? I hope you are all well. Today's video is on the book The Jezebel by Dylan Allen. It knocked my socks off. Holy smokes. I have read three of Dylan's previous books. Sorry, I had to go back in there. The Jezebel is part of the Rivers Wilde series. I have read the first book, which is The Legacy, the second book, which is The Legend, and then I also read A Sun and Her Star, which is a completely different book, standalone. And it was previously titled, and I cannot remember for the life of me, was it Envy? It doesn't matter. She changed the title quite a while ago, and actually I really like The Sun and Her Star because it fits the story perfectly because it's actually part of the story. In any case, let's get back to the Rivers Wilde. So the Rivers Wilde is this series that the Jezebel is part of, and it's the third book. I was excited to get back to this world she has created. I kind of knew that this next book was gonna be about Regan, which is Remington Remi. He's who the legend is about. And Regan is his twin sister. And so we kind of knew there was going to be probably something going on with how the legend was left. When you get further into a series, you know more of what's going on. I feel like the first book kind of lays the groundwork a bit. And then the second book, you get a little bit more of the world that the author is creating. And by the third book, like this one, it's definitely like I knew exactly who all the characters were and a lot of the story, and so I could make those connections and go back in my head and remember everything that I needed to continue with Regan's story in the Jezebel. Now, I'm gonna say her name is Regan, R-E-G-A-N. I don't think it's Regan. I kept meaning to pop into Dylan's Facebook reader group and ask her, so I hope I'm right. If I'm not, I apologize profusely, but I think it's Regan, so I'm gonna go with that. The Jezebel is about Regan Wilde and her life. She is obviously part of the Wilde family. But as with the previous books, the Rivers family is quite intermixed in there for reasons that I'm not going to go into now because that would be kind of a spoiler if you haven't read the previous two books. It's a little hard for me also in talking about it being the third book that I try really not to give spoilers. So if you haven't read the books and then you hear this, you might get a spoiler about something that you read about in the first book. So bear with me, and I apologize if you get a little information that you didn't know about. A couple of things that really stood out to me as I was reading the book is dual perspective, which I love, love, love. It's not uber important to me to read a book that's dual perspective, but I love getting both perspectives. It helps me connect with the characters on a deeper level when I know exactly what's going on in their head, not just getting their dialogue. This was one of those books where it really helped me fall in love with Stone. I'll get to him and all my thoughts about him in a minute, but whew, yeah, he was, I just have to say, it is the most fabulous time to be a reader and to be reading romance, because the stories that are coming out of amazing authors like Dylan Allen and the other authors that I talk about on my channel, with the women that they create and the men that they create in their minds and the stories, it's just, it's amazing. I'm like a kid in the candy store every time I open a book. Something else that I loved about the way Dylan formatted this book, if that's the right word, is that she put titles on all the chapters. And I really enjoy that. I don't necessarily miss it when it's not there, but when it is there, I really enjoy it because my mind automatically clicks during the chapter when we realize why she named the chapter what she did, and I dig that. Like I mentioned, the book is about Regan Wilde. She is, I just loved her. She is super strong, very independent woman, married with 3 children. We know the way her family has raised her from the previous 2 books. She stands on her own 2 feet really well. There is a lot of secrets and there is a lot of stuff you don't know, and people aren't really as they seem, and their families are very much the high society in Texas, in Houston. So there's all of that that brings on, you know, you try to put your best face forward and hide the dirty laundry. So this is the world that Regan lives in. I just adored her, and watching the transformation that she makes in this book as a late 30s woman trying to find herself again, or herself for the first time. I really liked all the soul searching and digging that she did within herself, and how she figured out how to live her best life. And I don't mean that in a cheesy way. I mean, like, she got what she needed through a lot of trial and tribulation and anxiety and stress and work, and she understood the platform that she stood on. And although there were times in the book where she really didn't want it, she was able to realize that that platform did give her support, and she could take it and run with it and work with it in the new world that she kind of found herself in. Stone, he was just amazing. He is a little bit, just a smidge younger than her. They meet when they are way younger. He's 10 and she's, I think, 15 maybe-ish. They meet in kind of a precarious situation, and Regan feels very protective over him. Stone kind of has his first crush, his first love with her, although she has no idea. See, spoiler. A situation happens. I feel like I say situation a lot. I gotta find another word for that. Something happens that changes the trajectory in a way of Regan's life, and yet she completely protects Stone, and he goes on with his life, never to see each other again until they do. That was really interesting to me because a lot happened to Regan. Bad stuff happened to Regan, and a lot of it stems from this one night with Stone. It was a lot. I wondered if we were gonna get, because Dylan doesn't give all of us that. We get part of that situation, and we know there's fallout, but we don't get it all until almost the end of the book. And I'm glad she gave it to us, because I found myself really, as hard as it was, wanting to hear exactly what happened. So the book starts with Regan being in a tough situation with her husband. We know it's a marriage of convenience. We know she doesn't love him. We know that she married him. He's 20 years her senior. We know that she married him to please her grandfather. But she has gone on to be married to him and have children with him. But it's not a fulfilling relationship in any stretch of the imagination. But he's one of the wealthiest men in the world. She again uses the platform that she's been given as his wife and as Regan Wilde to do good in the world in her own way through philanthropy. And they live basically separately. He's having affairs. He's not loyal. In fact, she says that her brothers were groomed to take over the family business, and she was raised to marry well. So that tells you about kind of where her station is in life. And she's so much more than that, and she knows it. And this is something else that she says about marrying Marcel. Marcel jokes that he pulled off the heist of the century, getting me down the aisle. Everyone laughs but me. It's no joke at all. I gave him everything he wanted in a bid to regain my grandfather's trust and affection, and never knew if I'd been successful. We know in the story that Regan has a interesting relationship with her grandfather. Her dad left. So she was basically raised by her grandfather, her dad's dad, and then also her mom. And that was a relationship that made my stomach hurt. Their mom, Tina Wilde, we meet obviously back in the first book, The Legacy. Do we meet her back there? We have to. Yeah, we do. We know, yes, we do. The Rivers Wilde family is very connected, and we learn more about that with each book. Like I mentioned, Stone is amazing. I adored him. He's an OBGYN. He's a thinker. He's a protector. He's a giver. They talk about that in the book. He ticked all my boxes. He's exactly who I like in a male character. We know that Regan and Stone have not seen each other many years. Their paths have not crossed until they do. And it is via Regan taking a trip to Mexico to spread her dear friend's ashes that have died. And she goes with another dear friend. The three of them were very good friends. And she's also taking some time for herself and just kind of recharge. Stone is in Mexico for a family wedding, but he's also taken time because we know that he lives in Colombia, and he's gone to work there to help the impoverished women in Colombia. And he's lived there for a few years, and he's taking this trip to kind of recharge, the same thing, and then also a family wedding. We know that he is going to return to Houston to live, to be closer to his brothers, get back with the family, and continue his life there. So when they first see each other again, Regan doesn't know who he is because it's been such a long time, and he was 10 the last time she saw him. She's obviously changed a lot. He's obviously changed a lot. So he knows it's her immediately. It takes longer for her to realize. They start interacting because he's like, oh my God, there she is. I need to go for that. And she is, and this is where it was kind of hard for me because, you know, I don't like infidelity in books. And I hope that's not too much of a spoiler, but Regan is married, but there's she's basically not, because she never spends any time with him. She never sees him. He is not faithful to her. He's not a great guy at all, but he's rich and he takes care of everything, so therefore she stays. And so that to me is what makes the infidelity palatable. She's like, I could, have a friend on this trip. And he's like, oh my God, there's Regan Wilde, the girl of my dreams. She's right there. I need to make this happen. Regan's friend Maddie said something that kind of was like a punch to the gut, but yet made complete sense. And if you are a woman of close to my age, I think that you'll probably understand exactly what she said. But this is what Maddie says to Regan. Regan, we're stupidly hot women in our mid-30s. This is the easiest it's ever going to be. And that guy, he's beautiful, and you'll never see him again. What caught me was in our mid-30s, it's never going to be as easy as it is right now, because I think as women we get to, you know, every year that we get older, and then there's like those decade birthdays where you're like, oh, you know. So when she was like, you know, we're in our late 30s, I wish I would have realized when I was in my late 30s how good it was, because I'm feeling a little different these days. This is what Regan is saying about her trip to Mexico. One of her children has called her and he misses her, and he's kind of guilting her a little bit. And this is what she says to herself. I'll come home early is on the tip of my tongue, but it's stilled by the promise I made to myself that guilt over being away from my kids wouldn't intrude on this trip. I miss them, but I need this time to myself desperately. I'll talk to your grandmother about your handwriting, and I'll be home on Sunday afternoon. We'll spend the whole day together, I promise. Will Uncle Remi be back soon? I think so, and pray that I'm right. Remi has done this before, taking off without a word, but never for this long. My kids love him more than just about anyone else. He's more present in their lives than their father, and his extended absence has been felt keenly by them. One of the shining lights in this series is the family relationships, as distorted as they can be, and yet as loving as they are. And I loved that, especially in this book, with Regan being a mom and her talking about her children and all of that. I ate all of that up. So while they're in Mexico, Regan and Stone start to spend time together. Of course, eventually she figures out who he is, and she's rather shocked. He is not the little boy that she remembers, of course. They have undeniable chemistry, which has blossomed as adults. It really showed me about their bond when they originally met. It showed me how quickly they could pick back up. They were both very much themselves, stripped away from their jobs, you know, Regan from her family, her children. They're on a trip, both doing the same thing. Stone's trying to spend some time with himself before he goes to the family wedding. Regan's trying to spend some time with herself once she completes what she's there to do with her friend. So that draws them together, and they decide to spend time together. Very sexy time, but also time that I really understood as a woman, and in trying to find herself at a point in her life where she realizes, oh my gosh, all this time has gone by and I've given some of the best years of my life to a man that doesn't respect me, doesn't love me, sees me as a trophy. Do I want to live like this for the rest of my life? And what am I showing my children if I do? So I got all that with her. I loved how Dylan wrote all of that. And Regan also is confronted with her past again, seeing Stone, because like I mentioned, there's a lot of havoc that happens in her life. Meeting Stone and realize everything he brings to the table and fulfills her in a way that's really beautiful. There's a part when they're together in Mexico and they've driven out to enjoy some of the area around from the resort they were staying at. They do an adrenaline kind of activity, and the way Regan describes it, I started crying when I finished reading it, because it was so, I just organically felt it in my bones exactly what she was saying. And this is what she said. The countdown begins and I clear my mind. When they get to 1, I launch myself off the gondola and the whole world rushes up to embrace me. Is this what it's like for newborn babies taking their first breaths? The thumping pulse of my steadily increasing heart rate becomes one with the wild symphony of rushing water, bird calls, and the roaring wind. I fall and fall. It's a smooth, weightless plummet. And yet, I could swear I'm flying. I've been so afraid of dying, of failing, of being alone, that I haven't taken a risk in 10 years. While I was busy being careful, the whole world has passed me by. This feels like making up for, and then it's over. I bounce a few times as the cord loses velocity. I stretch my arms wide, letting the breeze rush through my splayed fingers as I take in the swaying palm trees, the lazy lapping river, and the seemingly endless stretch of stone that I'll remember as the place of my rebirth. Isn't that gorgeous? Oh, see, it's getting me all teary already. Wow. And she quickly follows up with, the rush of pure adrenaline is instantly addicting. I want to do this all day so I can hold on to the euphoria and pride I'm feeling. Stone was right. If I can do this, I can do anything, including divorcing my terrible husband. I love when I learn something new or thought I knew something and learned something different. And Dylan brings in kind of the story behind the word Jezebel into this book. It's very much part of Regan and has a very important part in the book. I assumed that I knew what a Jezebel was, and I didn't until I read more and Dylan told me through this story about the true meaning of the word Jezebel. Also, I loved learning about Venus and Mars and the story behind them, and I love how Dylan brought that into Stone and Regan's story and how it fits so perfectly. Obviously, real life smacks them in the face. There's so much beyond their trip to Mexico. That's just part of the book. The rest of the book was heartbreakingly beautiful and sad in equal measure. But to get a good feel of where they lead off and how they feel about each other, this is from Regan's perspective. It's not just the mind-blowing sex that's gotten under my skin over the course of the last few days. It's his wonder, his compassion, his conviction, his tenderness. It's the way he wears his heart on his sleeve and the way he listens. He brought me here so I could go home with happy memories. I can't remember the last time anyone did something just to make me happy. This was supposed to be fun and sex, but it's gone far beyond that. I've attributed all of my flutters and skipping heartbeats to adrenaline, but after a lazy day of swimming in the crystal clear water with sea lions and sunbathing on sparkling white sand beaches, those flutters and skipped heartbeats more intense than ever, and there's no doubt as to why, which is too bad for me. Even if I wasn't still tangled up with Marcel, he's just told me he wants to live footloose and fancy-free, which is nothing like my life now. I don't doubt that one day he'll change his mind, then he'll find someone who can be more than just a holiday fling. The knowledge that my dream man will one day give all of this to someone else turns the sweet aftertaste of our kisses bitter. I banish the encroaching self-pity. This was never meant to last, which is fine because I don't need it to. I just need it for now. But as I follow him down the river, I know I'm in for a world of hurt when we say goodbye. I may be keeping myself upright on this board, but Stone has brought my heart to its knees. Oh my God. Oh, Lord, poor Regan. And then again, this is what Stone says shortly after. She's adventurous, beautiful, bright, and kind, but she's not the kind of woman you win with a few nights of sex and flattery. Nah, if I wanted it all, I've got to earn it all. I need to be in the same city, and I need a plan. But until she wants me more than whatever she's getting out of staying married to a man she doesn't like or live with, I might fail. She might trample my heart again, but to be able to finally claim her as mine is a hell of an upside. So they go home, and the rest of the book starts. There's so much to this story that just had me completely engrossed and addicted to it. I had trouble putting it down. I admired Regan so much at the end of this book. She's quite a woman. She is tough as nails, and you would want her in your corner. Dylan keeps us literally hanging on until almost the very end. Some of the last chapters in this book were the hardest for me in the very best way. Specifically chapter 52. I'm getting teary even thinking about that chapter. I would love to pick her brain to find out how and where she wrote that. How it's so sad. And it's a chapter where Regan and Stone are both completely stripped away, and Regan more so. And I know it sounds like I'm being, cryptic because I don't want to tell you everything, but it was really beautiful and really made my heart just clench, and it really showed me the essence of who Regan and Stone were in this book. And I loved that. Loved that. I would highly recommend this whole Rivers Wilde series. Do yourself a favor because there's so much to it. Go back and start with the legacy. You really do get the foundation that the Jezebel is built on. So read the legacy, read the legend, and then read the Jezebel. If you liked this video, I would appreciate you taking the time to hit the thumbs up button below and consider subscribing. In doing that, you will get notified when I upload a new video, and it also helps this video get shown to more people on YouTube. If you would like to come say hi on my social media, it is Kat Reads Romance on Facebook and Instagram. Thanks for hanging out with me today, guys. I'll see you soon. Bye.